Good afternoon. Well, that's on. I'm Graham Devine from Magic Leap. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we actually do. So I've been making games for around 35 years. I've been making games since the TRS-80, Quake 3, Seventh Guest, Age of Empires, a Halo game, Pole Position, Ball Blazer, 11th Hour, Wolfenstein, Doom 3, goes on. So, why did I get onto this crazy company called Magic Leap? I was living in Santa Cruz, California, perfectly happy in my semi-retirement, making games for the iPad and for the iPhone and living on the beach. And this crazy company called Magic Leap calls up and says, hey, we need a games guy. I'm like, no, not interested. No. And they called up again and said, hey, sign this NDA, and we'll show you something, and then we just really want to talk to you. So I signed the NDA, and they showed me a video, and I said, no, that is impossible. That thing does not, that's impossible. I know what is possible and impossible. I've been at Apple for 2 years. I helped launch the iPad. That is impossible. I will come to Florida, and I will call you charlatans. So I fly out to Florida, and, get there, and it's the night before, so I have dinner with the CEO, Roni, and it's one of those restaurants that has paper on it. And he's sitting drawing paper, and he's drawing black holes and photons and things, and I'm like, I wonder if I can get a flight back in the morning. I've made a mistake. And so the next morning comes, and I walk into their office, and it's right next to a dentist office, so that was encouraging. And I walk in, and there's a guy with a lab coat on. And I'm like, holy, this is the wrong place. I don't want a guy with a lab coat. And so I stayed around, and I stuck my head into what's called the Beast. If you've ever seen the movie Brainstorm, it's like the original Brainstorm thing. And holy cow, it's real. Absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe it. I made myself a very bad deal and said, I will help you. That within 20 seconds, I couldn't believe what was possible. So what did I see? Well, a little while ago, about a month ago, there was an article in the New York Times, and it had a picture from our technology in it, heading it up. Talked about a lot of other technologies, but gave away a little bit of what Magic Leap does. So let's take a look at the actual picture. Now, there was a guy hanging out in a room, Mick. He's real. The room's real. That shark hanging out in the middle of the table, that's not meant to be there, is it? That's a real shark. It would be great for Shark Week. It hangs out in the middle of the table, and it's not meant to be there. What the hell is that? What's going on? Well, before I kind of spill the beans, let's look at some of the rules that I've kind of set in place for Magic Leap as to how we think about games and what we actually do. Because we actually now are a games company producing games, and we need to think carefully about the platform that we're making this stuff for. So how do we actually do it? Arthur C. Clarke defined these 3 rules. Well, actually, he didn't really define them. They were derived from his novels, and kind of, that became kind of known as the 3 rules of Arthur C. Clarke. So when a distinguished but elderly scientist, me, states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. And if you actually Google Graham Devine is, it says Graham Devine is right. So that's actually true. But when he states something is impossible, he is very probably wrong. And this has been proven over and over and over again throughout the ages. It's impossible to go faster than the speed of sound. A car that goes more than 25 miles per hour will asphyxiate the driver. These things have all been kind of proven and disproven over time, and things have changed. So what I'm asking you to do today is to kind of take a leap of faith with me on that maybe Graham is up on stage and not smoking crack, that these things are actually real. Second rule, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. And this is the job of game designers. Game designers, we push the system. We push every aspect of the hardware. If we were happy with Unity, it would still be at level, version 1. They wouldn't have gone to version 5. They wouldn't be announcing new features today. Unity would still be the very, very, very first version. There's no reason at all to actually increase things. So rule number 2, the only way of discovering the limits It's a venture a little bit past them into the impossible. So our job is to push hardware. And when you're actually making a platform, our job as game designers at the company, very early on, is to make demos and make games that push the platform so that things are possible, so that the impossible becomes possible. So a lot of what we do is just making things, and pushing hardware into the possible. This one is his most famous one. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And this is where it comes to how we describe ourselves in our games and what we actually do in life. We're game designers. When we talk about our games and we talk about what we actually do, we talk about the games we make and how we actually construct things and what we actually come up with in terms of games. We don't talk about, well, this runs on a Pentium processor, this runs, this requires Unity 3.45, this requires, X amount of RAM. We don't describe it. We expect people just to experience something. This is something that was done really, really well by Apple when they introduced the smartphone. He got up on stage and he just talked about the features of the smartphone and what they actually did. He didn't say it's an ARM processor with some sort of GPU, and it's got 2 gigs of RAM, and the battery life is, I guess he did talk about the battery life. But, those features are all we need to talk about. So I'm going to talk about what we actually do and what we actually present, a little bit about how it's actually done, but I'm not going to reveal the hardware. That's for Announce next Unite. And one other point, if we think back to, even tablets, tablets and showing, tablets have increased from hieroglyphs all the way up to magic things. Kind of interesting. So what is it? It's a bunch of hocus pocus, a bunch of real. What we do is we render a digital light field into the world and make objects appear that aren't actually there. This is formerly known as ghosts. We make ghosts real so that everyone can actually see them. Now, if you actually do this, this isn't a display. There is no display in the world anymore. No more displays. There's no more nothing. A digital light field, if you actually think about the rendering of that, has a place in the world that looks real. So when I focus on something else in the room, that thing, still looks real. It goes, out of focus and does all the right things. Digital light fields are how we see the world. So digital light field renderer is basically an addition to the world. Everything we do adds to the actual world. We place things in the world. We place things, into environments around the world. Now, this is the point on the conversation from Florida where I was like, you guys are charlatans. But you got to trust me. It's real. So when we, on our website, a lot of these are pictures from our website. On our website, when you first go there, you'll see this video, which kind of shows a little bit about the types of applications that we think about when we write applications. There's so much that you can do when you are rendering a light field into the world, so much that you can change, that there is so much beyond the games and so much beyond just applications that you're starting to make this thing called modern magic, adding magic back into the world. The ability to put an elephant into a girl's hand, absolutely incredible. It's not a game, it's something new. So the challenge that we have in game design is actually incredibly hard. If we think about game design and think about everything that we've done up until now, it's all been on a screen. It's all been on a TV screen. It's all been in 2D in a world that we've defined completely. So now we're really changing up how and what things look like. We have these new challenges in game design. So everyone has a living room. Everyone's living room is completely different. No two living rooms are the same. But now you have to go and make a game that works in a living room, that can work on the floor, can work on the wall, can hide things behind the sofa, can make things sit on the sofa, can hang out, things hang out on the, on the bookshelf and run around and jump to the coffee table, pop out of the vase and have, jet fighters go past or X-Wings go past the windows on the outside. But golly, that's easy to set up for one room. That's, if I know that environment, if I know what I'm doing. It's very difficult when you have anyone's living room. Everyone's living room's messy. This is a model room from like IKEA. This is awesome. In our office, this would be like the test room of like, well, it work great in the test room, but take it to my house. I have dogs and cats and stuff and DVDs lying out, and the room gets about 400 times more complex. And if you have kids, stuff was all over the place. So how do I make game design work in that kind of environment? What kind of input do I need into the device to be able to say, this is an interesting game that I'm having. This is an interesting experience. This is the challenge of game design at Magic Leap. Games are no longer on that two-dimensional screen. They're no longer an Xbox One underneath. Games are in the room. So we think a lot about games and game design. And this is, also extends to the outside. We have, if you have the ability on the outside to suddenly make this look like, the big room in the Death Star with X-Wings flying overhead and X-Wings, TIE fighters coming in, or you change it into a spy thing, or you change it to a running thing, you change it to a zombie thing. Every street is so freaking different. This street's empty. What if it's full of cars? What if it's full of bikes? What if it's full of people? How the hell is it going to include something behind a whole bunch of people to make it look like it's actually there? How do I put a 400 Godzilla monster into that and crush that building? You're probably at the charlatan bit again. But these are the types of games that we think about every day at Magic Leap. This is the type of game designs that we're actually pursuing. This is the kind of game designs we're not even pursuing, we're actually implementing. And if you think about the way Magic Leap was founded by two companies. This is actually one of the big reasons I actually kind of joined Magic Leap was, Rony showed me the demo and I stuck my head in it and I signed it. But a lot of what he talks about is his partnership with a company called Weta. And Weta does all of the swords for Lord of the Rings and dragons and so forth. So the founding of the company was really between Sir Richard Taylor and Murray Abowitz. So the company's founding is technology and dragons. And dragons, I got to tell you, are real. You're all really at the charlatan bit, aren't you? This is why we're here. This is why we're talking a little bit more slowly. There's some easy ways out. Really easy ways out. I can go and make Jenga, or I can make Monopoly. I can go make, new solitaire games that exist in kind of, this reality. And we call this, we don't call this virtual reality. Virtual reality is this cool holodeck thing that takes up everything. We don't call this augmented reality, because every reality we see that's augmented is kind of a two-dimensional HUD that comes up, and it's a stereoscopic display. And stereoscopic displays, they aren't putting things into the world. They're just giving you like a stereo impression, adding to the world, and generally it's a HUD. Rony calls this cinematic reality. So my job title, which is the longest job title ever, and if you know longer job titles meaningless, is Chief Creative Officer and VP of Games, Apps, and Cinematic Reality Experiences. Meaningless job title. I'm just Graham Devine, I make games. And now I make weather apps. And now I make music players. And now I reimagine the web, how you interact with the web. I imagine what you do as you walk down the street, and I imagine what you do when you wear this thing for 8 hours a day. And it is a wearable. It is a whole platform. So these games, very easy, and we should do them. These games are fun. People played Monopoly forever. Why can't I have a Monopoly board I virtually put onto a table and I play Monopoly? That's awesome. That's kind of the easy grabs. Putting the dragon into the kid's hand, easy grab. Making it actually do something interesting, very hard. Go up and look at light sockets and do things interesting. But if you think back a little bit, we've actually been doing this forever. As children, we played with Lego. How many of you played with Lego as a kid? Almost every game designer in the real world does. It's how we get our imagination and how we have to get, it's either Lego or it's Meccano or it's those wooden bricks. What are they called? Lincoln logs. as a kid, I played with Lego, and I made Lego fill out my bedroom and fill out my, the dining room table, and it was like the jungle of Africa, and it had all sorts of things. It was pirate ships, it was starships, it was Star Trek, it was Moonbase Alpha, it was everything, and it was my Lego environment. And it spread across my bed and down onto the floor, and I could tell you exactly what all that meant. And that didn't occupy a computer screen. That didn't occupy anything 2D. That occupied the real world. So we actually have a little bit of training in our early years of making games in this world and how we actually do it. It's kind of an interesting that we then migrated to this 2D screen and kind of thought, this is awesome, this is what it's all about, this 2D screen thing. Back when I was growing up, it was Pong on Philips Odyssey and then Atari 2600. We went from Lego, which is freaking awesome, to 2D screens thinking that was freaking awesome. 2D screens are awful. No more screen. So let me tell you a little bit of from one of the game design documents. This is actual real game design document for a game called Monster Battle. I'm going to read out a paragraph, so excuse my reading voice. Today is Monster Day, celebrating the launch of the original Monster Battle game. Alice is excited to go and see what's going on in Monster Day. Alice was really excited. She knew that going outside today, there'd be interesting things. So she went outside to see what was going on. Her pet monster, Max, was already outside chasing some birds around the garden. Well, that's freaking hard. He came running up to Alice as soon as she stepped outside the door. Alice looked up in the air and pointed upwards. This directed Max to also look up. At first, they saw nothing. But the promise of Monster Day is that presents will fall from the sky with gifts, enhancements, and even special prizes for Monster Battle players. Got to scroll down now. As Alice watched, a new cloud formed. Max let out a shriek and started jumping. A winged dragon flew from the crowd, much in the way that a cat would leap from a box. We'll skip that bit. The dragon started to throw presents from a huge bag it was carrying from its claws. Alice could see some come down a few streets away, and she wondered if George was out there collecting them. She saw one heading towards the yard, and she started to point at it. Max started to jump up and down, trying to reach it. And as it fell behind the house, and George could not get to it. Another one came down, and it started to come towards the house, and Alice pointed at it. It came down towards the dad's car. Max jumped on top of the car, reaching up, and reached in and caught the prize. The box contained a new hat Max could wear, and he excitedly put it on. Alice stayed outside and caught a couple more presents with Max. One was a new color for Max's fur, and the other one was a very, very odd and hard to catch. It came down, and at the last minute, a propeller came out, and it was, it kind of flew funnily. It was a present for Max called a new contraction from another game called Dr. Grodbort's. Max had himself a pet. As she looked towards George's house, she saw that his pet was floating up into the sky. He had found a monster balloon that let his pet fly. Monster Day is always fantastic. Don't you want to make that game in Unity? Because that's our main platform is actually Unity. This is what we dev in every day. This is why we're here. We love deving in Unity. Unity's changed the way you author. And so we use Unity as our primary development platform. What we're here for is to get people to help us make these tent poles that launch with, to go make Max jump on top of cars, to go think about what else we can do, to go think about what else we can do with dragons, make monsters jump, do things inside and outside. So we're hiring, expanding, beginning to tell you a little bit more. Thank you. I will now take questions.
So I've spoken to half a dozen people now who work for your company, and I have yet to get a clear idea of exactly how this thing works.
You need to line up, and if you want to work on this, come and sign an NDAA. Come to Florida, stick your head into the machine, and look at what we actually do. Everything I've shown you absolutely is real.
Because all six have said exactly that. And they all are
Well, they all work for Magic Leap.
But
See,
going to Florida, is there any? You have a video that shows any?
you are me from just a little while ago. That's exactly the same boat I was in. Not at all. But yes, I was in exactly the same boat. And it is very, very hard being up on stage and telling you all this without being able to hand out 300 dev kits, which we'd love to be able to do, and love to be able to, to do more.
Can I ask a follow-up question? How long before there actually are dev kits for this?
We'll be continuing to roll out in the next year. But there's no announcement on dates or anything to do with that. But come talk to us. Yes?
Just to clarify, this will be like sort of like a wearable. So let's say something similar to like glass in that.
I just said wearable.
Yeah. Okay. On your head?
I just said wearable. There's stuff I'm allowed to say and stuff which, I disappear from stage. I get beamed up to the Enterprise. Sorry. Yes, get it back. Oh, God. It's of a size you want it to be. Yes, over in this corner, there was a question. Must have been a bread box question. Yes? We're in Florida. We are in several locations, actually. We have game development in New Zealand at Weta Workshop. We have game development in Santa Cruz, California, which is where you come from originally. We have development in Hollywood, Florida, which is just north of Miami. And we have development in LA. Come visit.
Can I stay at your grandma's place?
Any more questions? Yes, in the middle.
Any plans to develop?
We may announce something there soon. Okay, thank you. Oh, before I go, if you are interested in hearing more, we are having a get-together tonight. If you go down to the Magic Leap table, come talk to us a little bit more, get a wristband. Here's some more charlatan stuff.